boundaries in crazy circumstances and like, I mean, freezing cold temperatures at times, like, and I remember being in like the freezing cold and being like, and we're shooting and I'm butt naked in Iceland and I'm like, there's no place I'd rather be.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would not rather be comfortable sitting somewhere warm in my house. And like, I'm so glad that I've gotten to this point of just leaving that comfort shit behind. Like, this is what's on the other side of pushing yourself a little bit, is like these types of experiences. And I grew so much and learned so much about myself like during that. I'm like, oh, so, you know, when you push a little bit more, you get to experience a whole different version of you. You get to like become a little bit. And I'm just like so grateful that you were just locked in with me for all of that. And yeah, I want to hear about your experience for all of that.
Yeah. For me, it was such a gift and such an avenue into something I really wanted to shoot. And I'm not a very pushy person. I'm not a very like, I'll talk everybody into this, or through my force of will, I'll make this happen. I'm really reserved. I'm pretty timid. I don't ever want to talk anyone into doing anything.
Yeah.
But it's also mixed with this desire of like, I want to make something unique. I want to make something dark. I want to make something really emotional. I want to make something really vulnerable. I want to make something really personal. And all those things are generally on the other side of like comfort boundaries.
Yes.
But I'm also not the one to be like, come on, here we go. Like, we're going to go do this thing. So to have someone that was like, I want to do that, and I can manage me going there, and you can manage you going there, and we'll check in lots and talk about it. But like, I want to do that kind of stuff was just exactly what I wanted. And I could tell it was working because of the work, because I had such personal reasons for wanting to shoot that kind of work, and work like the first album by The Used that just hit me so emotionally way before I was ever an artist. I just had this thought of like, if I ever make anything that feels like that, I'll know. Like, I won't have to talk myself into it. It'll feel like this feels. And when we started to get work back like that, it was like a drug. I mean, it was like just a wave of real like appreciation, but really complicated appreciation, because some of the shoots were so hard. Some of them were so emotional and so sad and so complicated and so draining. But for a reason, it felt like, you know, my earlier life and all the religious stuff and all this stuff with sexuality and shame and all that felt like suffering for no reason. It felt like just pointless suffering. And trying to put that into art and trying to make something, and then getting the product that, one, I loved, two, you loved, and then people started responding to like, oh my God, like nothing else feels like this. And I thought, and I had the interaction with it, like, yeah, it felt like that. It feels like that because that's what it felt like to be there. And it was unique and complicated to get to that space. And that's the kind of work I wanted to be making.
Yeah. And I really have to say, like, I have to speak to like your work. Like, there was so many times where I could not even believe, like, I didn't even know what the photo was. Like, I really hadn't. A lot of the times, like, I was kind of in the dark of what we were creating. Like, there's times where I'm like sitting on a bench in public and there's things going on in the background that you're seeing, and like I'm just sitting there being with me, and like when you get the photo back, I'm like, oh, this was Ryan's perspective of everything that was happening. And I'm like, and that was, you know, like you were so intentional when we were shooting. Like, I was just like in awe to get them back. Like, I was like, that is not what I would have done, but I fucking like, it's just like, I would never think like that. And it was so beautiful to even like now, especially looking back, I'm like, I don't even feel like I was even grateful enough to be there. I mean, I'm a mom now, so I have 2 kids. Like, we don't shoot as much, but like when I look back, I'm like, I cannot believe like what we were producing in, you know, just like the time frames we were. Like we would only be together for like 3 days, come back with like hundreds of photos, like, or just like 10 portraits of one spot sitting in one place, not moving anywhere, but they're 10 completely different photos, all feel completely different. And we get to hold them in our hand. And like, they're so beautiful and there's so much there. And I'm like, I'm just like, it's crazy to look back because I'm like, that was such a beautiful time. I mean, we still shoot. I mean, we did kind of a little bit this last time, but there was something about both of us being able to just like be the traveling that was a part of it. Like everything was playing into it. Like us not knowing, like I think our home situations were kind of always up in the air at this point. Like there was so much where we were just like so trusting in one, ourselves and also each other. Like, I mean, there was some times when I literally had like $100 in my pocket and I'd be like, well, we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it works out. And it was just like, we were both so there for whatever it was going to be. And I'm like, I'm so appreciative that I got, like, that I had you to do that with, because I know I wouldn't have. Like, I know I wouldn't have done that all alone. Like, so much of my character and so much of who I am, I have you to thank, because you let me be. Like, you not only just let me be, but you encouraged, like, who I was and my creative process. And I needed it to be my own, like, just as much as you needed your part to be your own part, like my part was my own part. And it was like two separate things that just like perfectly synced up and worked so well together. But like, I think of it, and like most people that are artists are just known as themselves. Like they're just like, it's Michelangelo, it's Picasso, like they're their own separate things. So to bring two people together and make such beautiful work, I think is absolute, like it's like a miracle. And I'm so grateful like that we got to do that.
Yeah, I am too. It definitely occupies a really unique space in my mind. I've made lots of work I love with lots of people I love, but that energy of us working together has basically never been duplicated for me.
And I think the same on my end, like no creative outlet has ever hit in that same way. And I don't know if I'll ever experience something like that again. It was so beautiful. And I'm just like, I'm so grateful that got to be a part of my life. Like not everyone gets to say that. And you really saw me, and I'm just like, that's insane. But okay. So one last thing.
Okay.
I get asked all the time, like kind of like, I need to ask you.
Okay.
Like if you could put our work into words. I cannot put it into words. I feel like when I try to even explain this, like people are like, okay, so you're like a nude art model. Like what the frick is that? Like no one even like, it's just so far off. So I want to see like how you would describe our work.
Oh man, I'm not, I mean, that's the whole reason it's photography is it's too hard to put into words, had to put it into images.
Exactly.
If I had to take a crack at it, I would say that the normal, you know, the on the surface thing that we were doing was like photographer and art model. But if I had to classify more of what it felt like to me, I would say performance artist and documentary photographer.
Oh. That's it. Like I've never had the words, but that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, because you just were so gifted at embodying a feeling and letting go. And I was really good at observing it and thinking like, this is how this thing should be seen and shared. And then so much comfort and trust and respect to be able to do that in a really awkward way. Like, I mean, some of the stuff on the surface of what we did seems so like tense or inappropriate. Like maybe, in my opinion, the greatest photo we've ever made is the one with your hands on the side of your face. And the situation of that is we hadn't really seen each other in most of a year. Your grandmother had just died unexpectedly.
Yeah.
I flew in to shoot the funeral. We got right back into being how we were because we were so comfortable in interacting in really tense emotional circumstances. Stayed up until like 2 a.m. the night or 2 days before the funeral, and you were like physically grieving, but like mixing that into trying to make something. And there's this shot that just, to me, captures like grief, not like suffering or sadness, but just like the physical manifestation of like, not just pain, but like hurt mixed with love. Like that's why it's grief. That's why it's loss. And it's a photo of your hands by your face, but it's not cropped and it's on a 35 millimeter lens, which means is you were doing this really personal physical suffering. And when I took the photo, we were like this far apart. I'm like sitting on top of you and the camera's like 4 inches from your face while you're feeling the death of a loved one. You know, just like on the surface, it's like, I don't know, not a good idea or an extremely awkward, inappropriate way to approach it, but with just so much trust and respect. And
I felt so safe. Like I felt so safe with you, like that I trusted your end of things. It was like, I've got my end, you've got your end always. Like, and it was like, I'm willing to, like, it was just there was lengths that I was willing to go where I was like, I don't know what this is going to be, but I want to see. I have to see what it's going to come out like. And I mean, what's the most incredible is that I always wanted to be an artist, but I was so terrible. Like in school growing up, like when I was learning about everything, I was like, oh, I fucking love art. Like this is the other stuff. Like this is what we're like not, you know, like I could see Frida Kahlo was one of the first like artists that I was introduced to because I'm Mexican, and like that was on my family's walls, and it would be like her in a hospital bed bleeding out with like a heart and a bit, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so not what we're even allowed to even speak on. We like it was just like when I saw art, I was like, oh, that's the stuff that like people that are risky get to say. And people that are willing, like, will go after in their life, but you have to be a good artist. Like, I was thinking paint medium. And I was like, oh, and I mean, once they never put my shit on the walls, I was like, fuck, I suck. And I'll never be an artist. And that was so sad for me. But then it was like, you know, it wasn't my medium. Like, this was my medium. I mean, it was like, it was so body connected. Like, it was so just like, it was like, oh, people would always ask me after they would see my work, like, are you a dancer? Like, what's your background? And I wasn't. Like, I was a tennis player. I was completely on the other realm. It was something I was tapping into that was so buried down deep because even me, like when I was younger, I would be like, I'm not very feminine. Like, I'm not very like able to tap into, you know, those parts of myself. I'm very like, you know, I'm competitive. Like there was these like sharper words around me. Like it was so beautiful to understand that there was so much, or see that there was so much more to me that I was like, just like, it was like this part that it was like, there was like a lock on that door, and like we opened it and it was like, oh, there's way more to you. There's so much in there. You have to just let go, and you have to just like understand that it's probably not been done before. Like every person comes here with their own path, their own, you know, set of unique talents and abilities. Like, and maybe it's a unique talent and ability that no one's done before. And like, you kind of like, it's this like inward thing, like this inward journey completely that I was going on with you. Like, and it was so beautiful that we were able to do that together because I'm like, it's so intimate. It's so scary. You're literally like, it's confrontation after confrontation after confrontation with yourself. And you're like, well, why are you afraid of this? What's holding you back? Like, where is that coming from? And like, and it was just like, so quick. Like it would be like an hour of us shooting and I had like 15 realizations and I'd come out sweating and thirsty for water and I'd be like, well, I don't know what that was, but I feel like a whole different person after it.
To your credit, you're so good at it. I mean, I started describing you like that, like, as a real artist of being there in front of the camera. Like, you're so good at really letting go of what the whole situation looked like. And that's really, really rare. The other times I've encountered